To the casting workshop at Northlake College. Today I have 4 amazing women on this panel concerning casting, and we're going to start with Sarah Rhodes first.
Hi, I'm Sarah with the Mary Collins Agency, and I've been with Mary for 4.5 years now. I'm the assistant agent, worked my way up from administrative assistant. Mary has been in business for 30 years now. She's got an amazing reputation, not only in DFW, but in the Southwest as being a preeminent agent. We represent a lot of impressive talent in the area, including Miss Farrah White on the panel. We're very proud to be a part of this panel, so thank you for having me.
Great. And it's no surprise, people that know me, that they're all women on this panel. So that leads me to Deidre Woodard.
Hi, my name is Deidre Woodard. I'm the Vice President of Women in Film, Dallas. Women in Film is a national organization, and most states have a local chapter in a couple of cities. Sometimes, actually, we have a chapter in Houston as well. Women in Film has been around for 30 years. This is our 30-year anniversary as well. We've been having a lot of celebration events throughout the year. And then later this month, we'll have our annual Topaz celebration where we honor a Texas female in the media as well. In addition to sitting on the board of Women in Film, I'm also a writer, producer, director, and I have my own production company called Platinum Star Productions. So thank you for being here. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Great, great. So that lets us go to TJ Jones with SAG and AFRA.
Thank you. I'm TJ Jones with SAG-AFTRA, the Screen Actors Guild, and American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. We merged. We used to be 2 separate organizations for over 75 years and merged a couple of years ago. I'm the Director of Outreach and Broadcast. We oversee, on a regional basis, Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, so any production done in those areas, and that's what we do. We help negotiate contracts for all the different jurisdictions, from commercials to film to television, interactive gaming, and sound recording artists. So we cover everything that performers do when they're recorded.
And you can't have a casting panel without an actress, right? So our actress is Farrah White.
So hi, I'm Farrah White, and I've been acting professionally for about 15 years. And when I say professionally, I mean I haven't had to do anything else. So that's a big deal, and that's, you know, I'm very lucky. I know that luck plays a part of it. It's the whole preparation meets opportunity. It's 100% true. And then, it varies. I ended up branching out and have done some directing and some producing over the last few years as well, because you get to know people and you get to know how it all works, and then it's really all about helping each other. So I love the acting part. It's certainly my favorite. People often ask me, what do you like better? Do you like acting or producing? And I always throw back to them, well, acting is like going to a wedding and having a drink, and producing is having to throw the wedding. So, and it really is, but they're both fun. So you've chosen a great industry, and hopefully we can answer some of your questions.
That's a good way to look at it. So let's start with the elements of a casting call, and Farrah's going to give us those.
Yes, well, I have a cheat sheet, and that's really important. So when you're doing your project, whatever project that you want to do, that's probably what you'll end up doing, is either going to people that you know directly to work with, or you may have to go through, once you start really progressing in the industry, you'll go through an agency to get your talent that you want. And then there are just certain requirements and specifics that you'll want to put on your casting call, just so that you can help the agency do their job by getting you the best talent that will fit your needs. You always want to include the title of your project. You always want to include what city that you'll be shooting in. You always want to have whether it's going to be a union or non-union project. I'm not sure how much you know about this, but Texas is a right-to-work state, so it can go either way. If you're going to shoot a short, or if you're going to try to piece together something, but you don't really have that much of a budget, you can still do your project. You can go non-union, but that definitely changes then the parameter of talent that you can get. So when you're wanting to get, when you'll say you have a certain name of someone in mind, and you have pieced together some finances so that you can actually get that person, then you'll want to for sure reach out and make sure that it's a union project. You'll want to put that, because there's a lot of actors also that will submit to you And then also with the agencies to determine whether or not they're going to send you a hard copy of someone's headshot and resume, or whether or not you'll be willing to take a JPEG or a digital copy. But once you go through all of that and they actually show up, you know, for your casting, then actually I'm going to step back a second, because really I guess one of the most important things you need is a breakdown. So which would be one of the lists that you have of all of the characters that you're looking for, which would include a description of that character, an age range of what you want, and then just a brief description, a brief synopsis of who you want that person to be. Because then the agency can go through and look on their wall and say, well, this person's really good at comedy, or this person's really good at comedy, and then just make sure, again, that you're getting the right fit. You'll need to specify whether or not the project is going to be paid, or whether it's going to be deferred, which deferred means that you would pay after the fact if you got money. So there are some jobs that people do where, I mean, you know, some jobs I've been deferred on for about 15 years, but sometimes it happens. So then it's a matter of, is the project something worthy that someone really wants to do, and do they believe in you and you believe in them, and you want to do it. On will meals be provided? I will tell you this, as someone who's just been in the business, you really do always want to feed your people. That's one of the most important things that you can do. And it's amazing what you can get people to do for you with a little bit of good food. So everyone's just happier, and it makes the day go quicker. You always want to make sure and put the time and the address of where you need to be. If it's going to be a couple of different locations, then try to be as specific about the time as you can. Sometimes that's difficult, especially if you're having to move your whole production and everyone load up and then move back to a certain place and then load out. So, but always try to include that. And then, yeah, a synopsis on what your story is, whether or not it's a feature or a short. So those things are important when you're doing your breakdown, and then the agencies can send you everyone that might actually be, you know, again, something you're looking for, because then that saves their time and that saves your time. Because I don't know how many of you have actually sat in a casting, but it can be a little brutal. They're always really fun at first, but after you've seen about 200 or 300 people, it gets, you know, it's tough and it's hard to sit there. You know, your butt's going to start hurting, and you're having to filter all these people, and you're having to smile, and you have to tell them all the exact same things that you want. So that's something else. When someone first comes in, it's nice if you have water available, because then if it's, you know, sometimes it's hard. Most actors, I think, will walk in and have their water, but sometimes they won't. But you want a sign-in sheet. You want that sign-in sheet to have the person's name. You want it to have their phone number, and you want it to have their email, so that no matter what and what agent they're with, and their agent's phone number. And then usually you would have a column as to whether or not they're a SAG actor. So then you know what you're dealing with. But so they'll come in, they'll sign in, and then you try to see them in the order that you have them on their call sheet. Usually when you're doing a casting, depending on what you're casting for, you can do it in 10-minute increments or 15-minute increments. You'd be surprised, because, and also some people are not going to show up. So, you know, you try to book a good stable of people just so that you're not, you know, wasting your time there, or you're not waiting for someone to get there and then 5 people walk in at once, you know, or things like that. But you always want to make sure to have ample chairs in the waiting room, and to make sure that you have an area where you've got your camera set up where you're going to actually do the audition that has a wall and a door, so that someone can go into the audition room and have some privacy with you, and whether it's you and your producer and your writer and someone operating camera, you know, whatever. But having that separation is important. You don't really want to get up and do it in front of, you know, 30 people watching you that are then going to go in and do, you know, their part. So that's nice as far as having a separate waiting room and then actual audition room. And then when you're giving direction to people, you know, I would say to try to give them, you know, again, the description of what you want. Ask them if they have any questions, because they might say, well, you know, is this woman, was she divorced? Was she ever married? You know, do you want her really neurotic, or just not, you know, just beneath the surface? Little things like that. But I would say to try to come up with as many adjectives as you can to describe how you want your character to be without telling them exactly what to do or saying a line exactly how you want it. You know, I think anytime if someone says, well, hey, you know what, can you do it like this? And then they do it for you. I'm thinking, well, then why don't you just do it? You know, like what? So you don't ever, it's just, you find that the more experience that people get, that's called giving someone a line read. And you just don't, you try not to. Because then it's, you know, if you're not getting what you want, then that's probably not the person for you. And likelihood, you know, someone will come in and you'll have 5 or 6 people that will absolutely nail it the way that you do want, and then you can make your decisions on that. And sometimes you get a job because someone was going to name their daughter after you. Well, that's also an interesting part of casting.
Okay, so let's talk about the agent.
Mhm.
How are you involved? What does it mean? And can you also explain rate and buyout?
Yes, yes. All right, well, a good agency is going to protect their actor first and foremost, and we are going to take care of all of the stuff that gets in the way of an actor performing her craft. So that runs the gamut from sorting through breakdowns to find what's a good fit for the actor. Is this a viable project? Do we think it's going to net anything? You know, there's a lot that goes into sorting through breakdowns. Once we find a good project that we want to submit our people on, we go through systematically, decide which actor is right for which role. Are they available for all of the callback dates, shoot dates? If it's a commercial project for McDonald's, do they already have a Burger King commercial in cycle? You know, we take care of all of the business so the actor is protected and safe to work on the project. We are the first line of defense, talking to producers and directors and casting directors. We set up the audition. Once an actor's been submitted, the casting director chooses to see that actor. We work out that scheduling and talk directly with our actors so they don't have more than one person talking at them, and you know, no one gets confused. They know exactly where they're going, when they're going. They know what their sides are. They know what the character is. They know all the dates. They know the rate. They know the buy. After the audition, if an actor is fortunate enough to be called back, it's the same process. And then if they book the job, that's when we get into any negotiation that needs to happen. If there is, you know, different scheduling, you know, we take care of all of that. And then after the job has happened, we take care of billing, collections, receivables, any contracts or releases that need to be signed. So we are doing everything but the acting, and that leaves the actor free to do their job.
So do you guys understand, do you think you pay the agency, or how do you think the money works?
I think
Oh.
15%
You
of
don't
money they come in.
Go ahead.
Well, every agency has a different rate structure. At the Mary Collins Agency, we take 10% on union work because that is the rule, and we do take 15% on non-union work. We will always try to negotiate for non-union work to have the rate in addition to, our fee in addition to the rate, so it would be $600 plus 15%. That's not always the case depending on the budget, but we always try to negotiate that so our actor gets as much of that rate as possible. So
If the students have a budget for actors, how do they go about getting the job to you?
well, we love transparency. We hate having to guess a rate. One of the things I did want to say, Farah's list that she read out on what should go on a breakdown, if you have a budget in mind, don't be shy. Put that budget on there. A hard thing for us to do is work on something, a complicated rate. A producer will call and say, I have a commercial that is, I don't know the markets and I don't know how long it's going to run. Can you give me some rates? Well, that is a very, very tricky thing to do. We need a lot of information up front, especially with commercial work, but industrial work, film work. So we put pen to paper, we take our time, we always base our non-union rates on union scale. So a lot of math goes into it, and then we come back and say, all right, that would be $1,500. Oh, well, I only have $500. Okay, then let's work with your budget. So nothing is accomplished with holding that information. Transparency up front is always the best policy. And at the Mary Collins Agency, because we have a boutique roster of working actors, we need to keep them working on quality projects. So unlike some of the bigger agencies in town, we actually don't play on every non-union job out there. So while you should not ever be scared to approach us with your work, because we don't get paid until our actors get paid, and our actors don't get paid without work, there are some situations that we're not going to play on. If a commercial producer wants a full buyout, well, we honor conflicts. So if you're working on a Marriott commercial and you want a full buyout, that actor can never work for Holiday Inn. That actor can never work for the Westin. So that limits their future work. So one of the reasons an agent is there to protect their actor is to avoid the short term. We think long term, we think career longevity. So we would never want to tie an actor to a conflict for the rest of their career. Another thing we might not work on is if it's an industrial, that union scale would be $1,000 and you want to pay $200. Well, that's not a livable wage for an actor. There's a reason that scale is what it is. There's a reason that those rates have been established. And while it is non-union work, and while we can negotiate on all non-union work, we do want to protect our actors from working at a rate that is not acceptable for their career longevity.
I used to do a lot of half days because we didn't have a lot of money, but half days you can get a lot in.
Absolutely, absolutely, especially with a seasoned actor. You know, Farrah and I carpooled over here, and she was telling me that yesterday she worked on a project where she had 6 20-page scripts, and she is so great that they were done 2 hours early. So if you get a good actor, you can get a lot accomplished. You get what you pay for.
You do. And Farrah has an ear prompter, which is awesome. So, do you still use it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Can I tag on to what she was saying
Yeah,
about
yeah,
getting
yeah,
a good
yeah.
actor?
Because she is an actress as well. So,
I don't do acting as much anymore, but when you're doing your casting sessions, I'm sure everybody has seen the audition show for either American Idol or The Voice, and you know you're there, you're watching it, you're laughing hysterically usually. Well, they've edited out all the bad stuff that would run up all the time. So when you have your casting sessions and you're bringing people in, number one, I mean, everything that Farrah listed is definitely things you want to do, but there's some other things you can do to kind of limit the fluff, if you will. You can request people to send in a video demo so that you can pre-screen them. You want to pre-screen your talent as much as possible, because let's say I've rented out this studio for 4 hours and I've got 200 people who show up. I probably could have limited that and narrowed it down to about 60 people if I had asked people to send in a video audition. What that also helps you to do is it lets you see how good are people actually on camera. Granted, some people may do a selfie type of video, you know, audition, but some people might be really, really good. When I've done casting sessions, I always pre-screen. I also do not ask people to bring a prepared monologue, because usually it's a monologue that they've been doing for many, many years, and they may have nailed the monologue, but it doesn't allow me to see the depth of range that they have as an actor. So I always have another side that I have them read as a cold read, because that allows you to see, well, what's their range? What else can they do? And then when you're going through, let's say it's an independent project and you don't have a large budget and you have to be your own casting director, don't give them the first few lines of your project. Find a meaty piece of your script and give them a few lines. You don't want them to read through any more than a page and a half. Definitely, I mean, that's too long. You don't want them reading that much. And don't be afraid. I mean, if somebody's reading through something and you see, oh wow, yeah, they're nailing it, you can cut them at that point. You don't have to have them read all the way to the end. But you know, Farrah talked about, you know, having your camera set up. It's very important. I mean, you definitely want to videotape the people. But if you're going to videotape someone, you also need to make sure that when they're signing in, that they've signed a release that says that gives you authorization to videotape them, because you may not go back and post it on, you know, anywhere. It may just be for your own personal use. But having that to reference later is definitely good. And the last thing, 2 things. Chemistry is very important with your talent. We've all seen shows on television that you're just looking like, I don't like this show for whatever reason. A lot of the time it has to do with chemistry. There's a lot of shows out there right now that have some really good chemistry out there. I think Orange is the New Black, and that's a huge cast, a very diverse cast. They've got very good chemistry. I've been watching Blackish lately, very good chemistry. A lot of the time that comes from the talent, you know, and how seasoned they are in terms of what they're able to do and what they're able to give you in terms of a performance. But then also, once you've assembled your cast, get your cast together for a read, to read through. Maybe to do some type of social activity where you guys go out and they can get to know each other, because that makes them more comfortable when it comes time to filming, and then it saves you a lot of time and headache. And then there was one other thing that I was just thinking about, chemistry, and
We'll come back to you.
I'll come back to it.
We'll come back to you. Isn't it so interesting that some of the actresses are becoming casting directors, great directors, great producers, and also she's a second AD, right?
No, not
No,
second AD, no,
no.
just writer, producer, director.
Writer, producer, director. Okay, so let's talk about the union.
Well, first I'm going to address a little bit of the casting stuff, just so you guys know. Unions usually cover jurisdictions. How many people knew SAG-AFTRA before you were here today? Okay. Sometimes, and right to work was addressed, but we'll get to that in a little bit, but a union covers jurisdictions, and unions actually were designed to help the employers, the workers, in this case performers, have a voice in how their jobs are going to be handled. So we have decades of negotiations with, whether it's a group of ad agencies for commercials, a group of studios and producers for television and film. We've negotiated as an organization, Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, for all these many decades. So some of our books are pretty thick, and they can be a little intimidating, but they're really very user-friendly. They're designed to cover everything that happens. The studios in Los Angeles that are doing ongoing series, location shoots that are ongoing series or films, they're just all different contracts depending upon which thing it is. But we encourage you to reach out to us. Do not be intimidated. We are really designed to make sure both sides understand what they're getting. And they've talked about conflicts, and you have extraordinary people up here, by the way. But when they talk about conflicts and different things that mean something to you, big term, it's rare that a production person would have a conflict that would take them out of a job. But since an actor's image is what they really sell, that's why it's so valuable. And of course, that's why McDonald's or whoever's doing the ad campaign is very careful. They can have gone through thousands of submissions, and then you're in the top 10, and every one of those persons is excellent for each part, and you still have to pick someone. That's how having your daughter named Farrah sometimes can help. So, but there's lots of things that can go into it. But if you do things under a union contract, and it's very easy, some people, like I said, you can be intimidated by it, but I encourage you to be empowered by it. Because we've been doing this for decades across the entertainment industry of this country, and that's we're number one in the world on that. So we encourage you to reach out and learn about it, because you're going to want to use our members. You're going to want those people to make your projects elevate, because you're going to be doing all kinds of things. Because is everyone here wanting a job to make money in this business? Probably. Well, so are the actors. So I wanted to give you a little. First off, we're all about people getting paid, and just to let you know, when you do a reunion project, do it under contract, we can send out a notice to all of our members and say, if you're interested, here's this, and you can use like a separate email if you like, and they can submit directly to you. Not going around agents. It just so happens after 2008 and the economic changes, I know some of you guys are too young to really get that, but since then we've had a lot of actors, hundreds come back to Texas that were living in California and other markets. Some of them still retain their representation in those markets, so they might not get the submission that's done locally here. Now we have fantastic, the Mary Collins Agency, I've known Mary for these 30 years. And their agency is so awesome, and they're great agents. We have a list of franchised agents on our website that you can reach out to and ask for submissions from directly if you choose. But if you let us know, we're happy to send that to our membership so they can reach out to you, like I said, in a way that's comfortable for you for casting. But I do want to say one thing, because we're all about protecting the actors too. When you do auditions and people come in, I know that it's so much work for the casting director, but remember, for the actor, they get maybe 30 seconds or maybe 2 minutes to give you what you want and to help you understand what they can provide for you. Never lose track of the respect on both sides, because you want them to do the best that they can do to elevate your projects, to make your job easier. So remember, they're standing out there, they've all driven in, there's 30 people waiting, and they only have this short time to do it. So help create a scenario, and you guys have given them great pointers so that when they come in, they can do their very best for you, because that's what you want ultimately in your projects.
So what's the paperwork involved, just real quick?
Sure.
Because I've done one project. It was with Meryl Streep, so that was pretty cool. But we had to have someone sign something. What was that?
Right. Signatory paperwork is required to hire union members because they have multiple employers. Meryl would work for CBS and then Universal and then whoever she would be employed by. That particular piece of paper helps the person who's producing know the requirements of what you're doing, so that, as an example, if you hire somebody to do a commercial, but for some reason part of that commercial gets lifted into a Meryl Streep movie, that you pay them for the commercial and then you pay them for the use in the movie. The people who produce the movie will pay them, but they have to be able to track it, because I'm sure the footage that you're shooting and your intellectual property that you want to retain, the same thing is true for actors, so that's why the contracts are designed that way. But signatories mean I'm, as a producer, signing and agree to the rules that you guys have so I can use these members. And people who are members say, we don't work without these minimums being met, whether it's the money or whether it's danger on a set. All of those things are very important. And while sometimes when you're a new producer you might be a little nervous about it, it really helps you think through the process. And I guarantee you it will save you money in the long run on projects, because ultimately you'll have the best choices and people who know what they're doing, or learning to know what they're doing in a safe way. So signatories sign, that way their pay can go through their agents. And then in addition to paying, by federal law there's a requirement that if you want to pay for someone's pension and insurance, and you have multiple employers like ABC, Universal, CBS, whoever we're talking about, Atlantic Records, that you have to pay that pension plan directly. Now I know this is high weeds when it comes to the finance stuff, but it had nothing to do with SAG-AFTRA. It has to do with multiple employers, like plumbers too. And back in the 70s, a law was passed that if you are a union and you are collecting money for pensions, the check has to go directly to that pension plan. So while we're SAG-AFTRA the union, there is a AFTRA pension and health plan and a SAG, Screen Actors Guild pension and health plan, and every single person who works on a single contract gets a certain percentage, somewhere between 15 and 17%, that goes to that plan so that they can actually have retirement and qualify for insurance. That's why you have to sign it. I know that that's a lot of detail, but just understand it's very simple to do the paperwork on any of these areas, and we're happy to help you with it. That's why I brought some cards that have production information, so you can reach out to us directly about them.
So it's not a certain person that has to sign it, it's just any producer?
Well, either the production company, it depends on, because we are talking about a very wide range of projects, but depending upon the nature of the project, like if you were doing an industrial, that's a very simple thing. We even have a waiver so you can use members on a set that has non-members on it. We normally don't do that, but in industrials we do it here. It's a half page, you can do it by attachment, you sign off, and basically it says you pay them in under 30 days and you feed them in 6 hours. There are other rules that apply, but that's really, when you do industrials, that's what you have to focus on is and so somebody who signs for it, then they've set it up so that they say, we understand, we want to make sure they're taken care of. And it allows that performer, as well as you, the producers and directors and writers, to have an understanding of what you're agreeing to, because every project can become very valuable. It may not look like it at that moment, but things happen in this business that are surprising and exciting. So just protect yourself from the get-go. It's just knowledge.
I want to piggyback on what she said for a moment, because I realize I may have misled you initially on my ramble. She is absolutely right. There are projects that are like ultra low budget. There was even an experimental at one point. So it's not necessarily about the amount of money that you have to work with. You can still have SAG contracts. And signatory is also just means that that's the go-to person, kind of like what Sarah had referenced earlier. So that is the person that SAG will deal with. So it also opens that line of communication to where that's the person that'll be responsible for the project and as far as any dealings with SAG. So then it just cuts out a lot of, saves people time. But you can do, and I still do features, especially if it's, someone's written a script and you really like it, or it's a project that one of my friends are working on. You will do a low budget or ultra low budget feature that is SAG, and it does have just certain things that do protect the actor as far as you don't want to necessarily work them more than 8 hours a day. You do need to feed them 6 hours after they arrive. So it's just little things like that that you do have to follow. But, it is still an option. I always think of it more related to independent film than I do industrials or anything.
We have our first question here.
Hi, my name is George. First of all, thank you for coming and giving us such great information. My question is for Sarah. Sarah, I aspire to be a voiceover talent. What is expected of me and what do I have to provide?
All right. Well, voiceover is a great facet of the industry. It is so much faster than on-camera work. So you can voice 6 spots in one day, whereas you can act on camera in one. So it really is a wonderful facet of the industry. There are union contracts for voiceover work. There's commercial work, narration, anime voiceover, gaming voiceover. It's a lot of fun. In order to break into that industry, it is difficult. You have to have a top-notch demo, and a commercial demo, a narration demo, a gaming demo. I mean, depending on your level of experience, it's great to have numerous demos so you can show off different facets of the voiceover world because each type of read is different. Breaking into voiceover takes a little bit longer because it's incredibly difficult. I don't want to minimize how hard voiceover work is because you're acting with one thing, and that's your voice. So it's wonderful, but it's tricky. So I would suggest working on a demo. If you have any produced spots already, that's wonderful. But if not, you can work with a great engineer and create a demo from scratch. But that would be your first step, is getting a demo. There are online sites, Voice Bank, Voices123, that you can put yourself on if you're unrepresented, and you can get projects through those sites. But if you are seeking representation, just go to that agency's website and see what their specifications are for you to submit. Each agency has different requirements, but submit your demo and resume and all your information, and then if you're signed with that agent will procure all your work for you. Right?
Yeah, I was wondering, when you were talking about Deidre, right? Deidre, when you were talking about like chemistry with casting and stuff like that, does it help to, whenever you start to narrow down, have them act against each other, like in the casting room and stuff like that?
Not against each other, but
Not against each other, but with each other, like,
Head to head.
like your 2 leads or something like that, to see the chemistry before you actually cast.
That's definitely a good suggestion to do. If you have time during your casting session where you can pair up actors, if not, if you don't have time, then usually there's something called callbacks. Then you can pair up actors at that time and have them read to see how they interact together. The thing that I was thinking of earlier is, if you have talent that, maybe you just love that way that person looks, but they just don't read all that well, take yourself out of the equation, because remember, your audience for your project is broader than just you. So remember, there are going to be other people who may or may not be drawn to your talent based off of how they look. You may not be drawn to your talent, but someone else may be drawn to their talent, and they may be extremely talented. They may give you that performance that you need to really make your project a success. But the other thing I was saying is, if you have something that that talent does that just irks you during the interview process or during the audition process, or maybe that person just seems, I don't know, they just do something that really bothers you, just remember, this is someone that you're basically going to be living with for the length of your project. So like I tell my single friends, when they're dating, use this time to acquire data about the person that you're with. Same is true of the casting session. Use this time to get as much information about them as you can, and if there's something that you think, something's just not right, listen to your gut. It's usually never wrong.
We have another question for you.
Hello, ladies. My name is Reggie. My question is directed towards Deidre as well. I noticed in your bio that not only did you attend school in California, but one of your films that you shot and appeared in was in California. My question would be, do you have a preference of locations that you find to be the most productive, And if so, do you believe in traveling abroad for work or just staying local?
What film are you referring to?
Well, it's the Sinbad film, House Guest.
House Guest. Okay. So House Guest, thank you for your question. House Guest, I was actually in House Guest as an extra, so I didn't shoot that, so just to make sure we're clear on that. That was actually my first acting gig I had. I was in medical school, so I'm a little bit of a rebel, so I didn't even go to school for this. I've learned it all from hands-on experience. But when I was in medical school, I used to moonlight and do acting and modeling. And in Pittsburgh's a pretty big hub for where they used to do a lot of films. And I had heard on the radio one day that Sinbad was in town filming House Guest. I was at the grocery store getting ready to go in, and I saw Sinbad out front, and I've always been pretty outgoing, but I said, okay, he's still out here. When I come back out, I'm gonna ask him if he has any more parts. So I went into the store, came back out, he was still curbside loading up his groceries. I just went over to him, I was like, hi, you don't know me, my name is Deidre. I said, I was just wondering, do you have any more parts left in your film? And he said, well, here, let me give you the name of my casting, the talent agency and the casting director. I called the casting director, I did have a headshot, sent my headshot over, and I kid you not, for the next 3 weeks, I was on set every single night after class. I hung out with Phil Hartman and the late Phil Hartman and Sinbad in their trailer every single night from like 6 p.m. until 2 a.m. Then I'd go to class the next morning. Their advice to me was, don't get into this crazy industry, stay in medical school. But I really got bit by the bug. And if any of you have seen the movie House Guest, if you go back and look at it now, I'm in quite a few scenes. You had mentioned earlier the wine tasting scene when Sinbad is up there talking and proposing the toast. I'm right there in the frame of the shot, the entire scene. But you know, look, you asked about location and choice of where you're going to film a project. A lot of the times nowadays, everything is so budget driven. Different states offer different types of tax incentives. So that's playing a large factor in terms of where production is taking place. Like a lot of LA productions are now going to Louisiana. Texas actually has a very good incentive program. I think our rate now is 23% or 22.5% is what we offer. Plus, it's the only state that offers a grant-based program. So if you are not familiar with that, I would encourage you to not only check out the Texas Film Commission and learn more about our tax incentives, but then also Women in Film has a grant program. Then you can find out more information about our grant program that we offer at wifdallas.org.
So when you were in college, was it when you were at Stanford?
No, I went to Stanford undergrad and grad school, and then I was at University of Pittsburgh for medical school.
Okay, that's great. Vera, you're up. Tell us a story.
Well, what do you guys want to hear? Do you want to hear an acting story?
First acting job.
Ooh.
That might be scary.
I'll tell you, so first, like big film?
Like major, yeah.
First big film, I too had a very small part in, because that's how it works. And that's also what's kind of nice about being in a smaller market is there's big movies that come in that you can get a nice little part in, and then you can have big parts in smaller movies. But the first large project that I was on was a film called Miss Congeniality that shot in Austin and San Antonio. And I was also there for about 3 weeks. And it was actually kind of interesting, kind of a funny story. But it was, and so it was this whole gamut of all of these women, you know, pageant competitors. But Sandra Bullock was there, so that was very cool. And she was very cool, and there were a few scenes that I got that were with her, and there was a lot that got cut. But I got to meet Sir Michael Caine, that was amazing, and his nickname for me was Alamo. And Benjamin Bratt, who was also very nice. William Shatner, who was hilarious. And yeah, so that was a pretty cool experience, and it ended up paying very well. Actually, I still get paid for that movie.
It's a union contract.
It's a union contract. So, and that is something, so they have extras, they have featured extras, and then they have principals. So it's once you have a principal contract on a union job, you pretty much get paid indefinitely. So we call that mailbox money. And we're very grateful to have that. And but it does. It comes forever, and it's every time. So especially around Thanksgiving and Christmas, like what we're about to have, they'll play that all the time on cable. So then I know that I've got a big usage check coming. So anyway,
I mean, is it in the hundreds or thousands, or can you talk about that?
now it's in the hundreds.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
You
but
have
it's
another
been.
question?
Don't even think about how many years ago that was.
And you had a good-sized part, which is
It was yeah.
Hi, my name's Philip Anderson, and I had another question for Vera. I was wondering if you could tell us one unexpected pro or con of working in unionized states versus non-union states, like Texas.
Oh, and that's for me?
Is that fair?
Okay, you know what? I'm Vera at Starbucks. Yeah, did you call me Vera? I thought you said call me Vera. I was going to say, I'd laugh. I get called Vera at Starbucks every single time. I just don't even. But
I'm sorry
no,
about
don't be
the-
sorry. Don't be sorry at all. I just thought
This
I
is
just
the president of our North Lake Video
Oh,
Club.
nice. Nice to meet you. No, it's but you know what? It's just one of those things. As an actor, it's more of you definitely, especially someone. So I've told you that this is all I've done for the last 15 years. So this is where all of my money comes from. So that is hard. That is something hard. Meaning, like you have to have jobs that pay. However, we all want to do the jobs that are the most interesting to us also. So yesterday when I talked about kidney transplants for 6 hours, although it was really pretty cool and I learned a lot, that's not necessarily where my heart might be. But that's certainly how I'm going to make my house payments. So when jobs come up that are features, sometimes they think it's easier to actually get it made in a non-union state. They feel like, and they meaning the production team, feels like they can actually have a larger budget or get more for their money. And quite frankly, I'm not really sure if that works all of the time. I think oftentimes if it's not based with people who are very knowledgeable, then you end up going over budget anyway. And kind of like she had said, sometimes SAG actually saves you money. So even though it's a fear of it's going to cost you money, sometimes it actually saves you money. So it really varies. But if there are some people who live in states that's where they live and that's where they're going to shoot and that's where all their locations are, and then I have to go and do a tap dance with my agents and explain why I'm going to go work on some heart project, but then you know what? But then I'm losing money for sure. And you may not feel it immediately, but you'll feel it a few months from now. So it's a 50-50.
Thank you so much. We have a question for Sarah.
Hi. I was just wondering. I like a lot of busy work. I like working nonstop. It's just my favorite thing to do is work. So I'm just wondering how you got into this position. I know you moved up in the business, but how did you first get into it?
Well, when I was 10 years old, I wanted to be Yo-Yo Ma's agent. So, no joke. So I went to college and I double majored in music and arts management. So that really gave me a basis for doing the business side of art. After college, I worked with some nonprofit art organizations, but the nonprofit world during that time was really, really hard. We were kind of in a recession and people weren't giving, and it was just really, really hard. So I was incredibly lucky, and it was just the perfect timing that a position at Mary Collins opened up, and I haven't looked back. It was, it's been a perfect fit the entire time, and each position within the agency that I've transitioned into has been a really good fit. We are a small but very fierce team. We have 5 people in the office, and we represent about 150 actors. And one thing that we like to say to our actors is, when you're working, we're working. When you're not working, we're working. So we are a 24/7 agency. Some other agencies in town might choose to not answer the nighttime email, or they might run a 9 to 5. But as I was saying before, we don't get paid unless our actors get paid, and our actors don't get paid unless they get the work. So we are an all-hours agency. I mean, we certainly respect people who respect our time, but if I'll highlight political, which Fair is a great political voiceover talent. I apologize, but all those political ads, those are our actors voicing those for you, so you're welcome. But it is a crunch time for about 2 months, and our senior agent, Kim Trusty, she will book people in the car on the way to work. So we have actors that would camp out at one of the area studios because they know that they would have to go back in 45 minutes. So why go home just to go back? So they'd bring their book and go to Starbucks next to the studio and just chill there all day, and they would voice, 6 political spots in one day. So yes, it's always very busy at our agency. It ebbs and flows, and actors sometimes have a hard time understanding that, but it always does ebb and flow. But we are very devoted to our roster, and we're very devoted to the producers that we've gotten really good relationships with, the directors, the casting directors. We love everything that we do, and we have to because it's hard work. But yeah, so does that answer your question?
It does, but are you guys currently or in the future taking any internships or?
She's asking for a job.
Sure.
Smart.
You do that. We actually, Mary has told us many times that our team right now is the strongest that it's ever been, and she's very happy with who's in the office. Now that certainly doesn't rule out any internship opportunities. In my 4.5 years, we've actually never had an intern. But prior to my starting, I think she has had some interns in the office. So you are welcome to email your information, and we can let you know of any opportunities that come up.
Okay, thank you so much.
Because I think that's important. Now there's social media, and that's perfect for Rich.
I just wanted to let you know, if you go to the SAG-AFTRA website and go to locals, just what you're looking for is a list of agents probably. And believe me, Mary Collins would be a great opportunity. But if you want to see other franchised agents, just so you know the names of them and how they exist.
Why don't you name them, because you're the most.
Okay, I can name the franchised agents, and this is in no particular order and has nothing to do with my feelings about them, okay, because I can't recommend. But Mary Collins, Kim Dawson, the Campbell Agency, Calidus, Suzanne Horn, Linda McAllister, Klutz, and I'm forgetting somebody.
Core Talent.
No,
Are they
they're not
core?
franchised.
Linicom?
Not anymore. I adore her, yeah. Linicom used to be franchised, but they're not anymore.
What does
But
franchise mean?
franchised means that they have come to us, to SAG-AFTRA, done an application. They have to post a bond, and just so you know, in Texas now, as of 2 years ago, a very really effective law that we had called the Texas Talent Agency Act went away. So this is actually really good information, thank you. That means the only agents that are bonded and have money sitting aside so that if something happens and they can't pay people for whatever reason, that bond will pay talent. The only ones that have that in Texas that we know of are the franchised agents, because we require that. And the law went back to 1988. Mary was one of the folks that worked on it. But for whatever, it has to do with the legislature deciding that this was cost effective to get rid of a number of things, and it just happened to fall on that. They didn't even reach out to us or agents. It tells you how the government worked in that time. But that means agents you talk to and deal with and may send money to are not necessarily protected. And so franchised agents have gone through, interviewed with our board, and we are member-driven organizations. So actors actually sit on our board and help direct policy. And they also have influence on the way we do negotiations and all of those things. But that means that that agent sat in the room with those people and was personally vetted before they were approved. And in Texas right now, you can say, hi, I'm an agent, you just became one. So there's no laws that really protect performers. And the way money moves in this business, where it can be, you can get some big chunks of change from time to time, right? So you want to make sure you're working with folks that really have a business base that's trustworthy. And I can say we always only recommend franchised agents because we know they've been vetted and they have bonds.
Great.
And lots of other great things about them, but those two things. Yeah.
Yes, that helped on my question. I know you ladies have vast experience in different aspects of the business. Have you ever signed a contract with a director or producer or company, and then you got on set and it was totally misrepresented? If so, are you allowed to walk away from that project, or are you committed?
I will say I have had one experience, and I didn't really handle it. It was our senior talent agent, Kim Trusty, that handled it. A young actor on our roster was working on a feature. It was non-union. So there was a level of protection of the actor that wasn't there because the union wasn't overseeing the production. But we did have some difficulty with the director of, you know, he didn't have permits to shoot where he was shooting. He had our actor dressed as a police officer, and our actor was actually scared that he was maybe going to get arrested for impersonating a police officer because the production didn't have the permits necessary. So Kim worked very, very hard on that project, and there was a lot of back and forth, and it ended up getting done because, you know, we were able to get certain protections, and you know, he never walked off set. I think he may have wanted to, but he called his agent, and his agent handled that for him. So, you know, that's a difficult situation for me to talk about just because I haven't really experienced it. I don't know if...
With the contract that you're talking about, was it a union contract?
It was just hypothetical.
Okay. Well, no, but that, I'm very glad you asked because, and actually this is a Mary Collins quote too, you as performers have the power of the no. And as produced, you know, whatever job you're in, you always have the right to say no. If you think, especially if you have reason to think that it is truly dangerous, and we had a terrible tragedy happen back in the spring, and I would tell everyone, if you have real cause, take the time to say no. It's really that important. It will rarely come up. It is such a rarity because usually when you're working under, especially under contracts, you have people who do this as a living all the time. They're going to want to make everything as smart and safe and all those things so it can move smoothly and they can get to the next shot, you know. So, but I would tell you that's actually a legal question, and I would refer you to a legal professional. But if it's a union contract that you've signed and you find that there's a problem, not only call your agent, but call the union office. But if you, and I can't stress this enough because someone died over this, if you see that there is real danger, then absolutely take yourself out of it. You may be the one person that does it that stops everybody from getting hurt. So feel empowered.
She was a crew member, right?
She was a crew member, and if you didn't hear, you can Google it, but it was on the Greg Allman story, Midnight. I can't think of the title right now. Something Midnight.
It was even in the Academy Awards. They did it.
Yeah, they did, and they were working in all places on a train track, and it wasn't a whole shoot day, but they had people there, and it was actually not just a track; it was a trestle, and there are very, very, very specific rules about being on a track for any reason, and trains win. They win, and so. Somebody lost their life. Several people were very, very badly injured. And of course the project has gone away and there are criminal things, you know, criminal charges now, but just don't be afraid, don't lose, and we all love the magic and we want, that's the whole purpose of this is to create a situation so the performers can provide that moment of magic and your projects can do those wonderful things, whether it's a commercial or whether it's a film that touches someone's heart. But never lose track of the fact that you're smart and you're educated, and don't get so caught up that you lose track of something that's a real danger.
In fact, just want to add one thing. For those of you who may be moonlighting as actors as well, for your agent, if you have an agent and you find a project on your own, always notify your agent that you have this project. Don't think, oh, I found this on my own, I'm just going to keep all this by myself. There's plenty of times when your agent is there to protect you. And when you're not out looking for work, your agent is looking for work for you. So don't ever feel like, oh, I found this on my own. Your agent has a right to know about that as well, and it's there. It's going to be in your best interest to notify them.
Thank you.
I actually kind of have a very specific legal question. I'm actually working on a project today with an actor who I believe is union, and he is represented by a talent agency. I can't remember which one. But initially when he signed on for the project, it was just, we said it was non-paid and it was a student project just for our workshop class. But the project has been turning out so well and we're so happy with it that we're thinking about progressing it into film festivals. Are there any negotiations that would have to happen since that is changing, since we're moving on to looking at distribution, that would have to happen since our actor is represented by...
Yes, We actually have a contract for student films. It's very easy. It's all deferred. So, but if you change, like you're talking about, if you change from one process to another, you want to make sure that, and you can actually do this even if you're in production. It's really important to do stuff ahead of production so you've got it out of the way. But it's great that you have good enough footage that you're thinking, this is really cool, we want to do something more with it. I mean, isn't that the whole idea, right? So, but yeah, you should do paperwork with us. And if it's ultra low budget, is your budget below $200,000?
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, I'm not trying to sound strange,
try
but there are
$500.
yeah, and as she said, a lot of that should go to food because
It all went to food.
Yeah, I can tell it keeps keeping people happy is the whole thing, you know. So yes, but you can reach out to us. We have a card. You know, I have a card about production that you guys should have gotten that got sent around, and you can call our office. We'll ultimately get a rep for you out of Miami that will help walk you through the process. And if you're since you're already in it, you can explain to them and. They'll help you figure that out. But you do a preliminary sheet, you can go online 24/7. It's called the Production Center. Go to SAG-AFTRA Production Center. You fill out the preliminary sheet. And even if you don't know all the answers, get it sent in so somebody starts working with you and helps get you through it. And, the great thing about this business is we have the ability to take this cool little seed of an idea and create something that employs people, uplifts people, entertains people. It is awesome. So I wish all of you great success on that.
I have 4 minutes left, so I'm going to go through the line, just 1 minute each on any advice or words to the students.
I love transparency, as I've said before. So a very thorough breakdown. Name your rate, name your buy, depending on what kind of project you're working on. Name the contract that you think you're going to have your film be on. It's very hard for an agent to guess, especially when we're up against deadlines. So, being honest up front, I think, is a way to an agent's heart for producers and directors. So, transparency.
Deidre.
Being true to yourself. As you're in this business longer and longer, you may expand the types of things that you do, but don't ever feel as though just because maybe you have a production company and so-and-so has a production company, don't feel like you have to do all the same types of things that the other production companies do. Do what you're passionate about, because then you'll put your heart into every single project that you do 210%, and your project will look that way. Your talent will appreciate for that. But never sacrifice who you are. Be yourself for as long as you're in this industry.
TJ?
Okay, I told you about the seed and the cool thing that you get to do with that. Reach out to our office because we put together like contracts information for people, whatever level, and you can come to our office and do it, or we'll have it at a location. Sometimes we work with DPA, Dallas Producers Association. So reach out to our office and ask Sheila to put you on an email list for production information. That way you can have more specifics about contracts.
Farrah.
If you're really serious on really no matter what type of position, go intern for production companies. Go intern for a set. There are so many independent projects being done that actively seek out interns. Go spend a day and see what it really is, and also see all of the different things so that you can decide ultimately what you really want to do. But don't be afraid to jump in. People always need help. I mean, every day people are asking me if I know anyone that can come PA or do this or that. So, and don't be afraid to start at the bottom. And don't be afraid to, one of the best pieces of advice I got from a casting director was, she said, at a callback level, every single person in there can do the job. It's who do we want to invite to the party? So I've tried to, because like someone else had said, you're going to be on set with them sometimes for 15 hours, sometimes literally. So make sure that it's, someone that you want to be, or be that person.
And it's a small community. The people that you see, you will come across them at some point down the road. So you never want to burn bridges.
No, and go the extra mile. If you're going to go get yourself a water, come back with 4. Other people want them. If there's trash on the ground, pick it up. No one, we're all the same. It takes a village to get any project done.
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. And my advice to my students, just keep creating. Thank you.